My name is Chris Murphy, co-founder and CEO of Bluedrop Medical. We're on a mission to end unnecessary diabetic amputation. We're raising a $20 million Series B. We have 50% already committed from our existing investors. So this is a huge problem that we're solving, diabetic foot ulcers. There's 1.7 million ulcers leading to 100,000 amputations and $17 billion in cost each year in the US. The solution, despite the scale of the problem, is actually very simple. You need to just check your feet daily, visually and thermally. These simple steps have been shown to prevent over 70% of foot ulcers, yet they're currently just too difficult to use for the patient population who can be elderly, obese, have mobility issues. The current solutions lack key functionality and are disjointed and effectively are not making an impact on the current state of play for diabetic foot ulcers. So we solve these problems. We combine thermal and visual monitoring in a simple, easy to use device. It takes 30 seconds to use per day. We include remote patient monitoring around this technology. And if we can solve the problem, the market is absolutely huge, $4 billion in the US alone. So diabetic foot ulcers, the reason they occur is because of peripheral neuropathy. So people with diabetes develop nerve damage in their feet. So this means they don't realize when they stand on they have a stone in their shoe, when they have shoes that are too tight. Very minor skin damage goes unnoticed and eventually develops into something like a foot ulcer that can ultimately lead to an amputation. About 25% of all people with diabetes will develop a foot ulcer at some point in their life. And really, once you develop your first ulcer, you're on a downward spiral. You're gonna get a second ulcer. 40% will develop a second ulcer within 12 months. By 5 years, almost all of these patients will have developed at least one subsequent ulcer. The really shocking stat, though, is that 15% of these ulcers lead to amputation. And even after amputation, the 5-year mortality rate is incredibly high, 46%. That's higher than almost all forms of cancer. So, as I said, we actually know how to prevent all of these ulcers. It's incredibly easy. You just need to visually inspect your feet. The reason you do this is because if you can't feel your feet, you don't realize when this damage is occurring. So you need to check once a day at least for visual signs of skin damage. Temperature monitoring has been proposed as a really incredible way to predict these ulcers in clinical trials. It's been shown to prevent 70% of foot ulcers. But the challenge is that these techniques are just too difficult to use for this patient population. They're elderly, they have poor vision, poor mobility, and it's really impossible to actually view the soles of the foot for a patient from one of these categories. In total, they take about 10 minutes to use per day, which is, again, just too challenging. Competitors have taken this technique, really looking at temperature monitoring, made that a lot easier to use, taking it from 10 minutes down to about 30 seconds. But they still haven't, the problem still exists with visual monitoring. So the patient is still required to visually inspect their feet every day. And this means that the true promise of temperature monitoring hasn't been achieved. The patient still has to check their feet if a hotspot is identified. So even though there's solutions out there, they haven't made an impact on this problem. Neither of these methods will work alone. Temperature monitoring and visual need to be combined into one system, and that's exactly what we've done with our device. So the device, as you can see, looks very similar to a standard home weighing scales. The patient uses it once a day, and in a 30-second scan, we take visual images of the feet as well as temperature data. Despite looking quite simple, there's an incredible amount of sensor technology built into this device, for which we have 2 patent filings. The device sends the data to the cloud where it's reviewed remotely by our in-house clinical monitoring team. And if we identify an issue, we'll reach out to the patient with simple, easy to follow steps about how they can prevent that ulcer from forming. In more severe cases, we'll also reach out to the healthcare provider to schedule in-person or emergency care. We have some really good data. So just last year, we finished a clinical study, and really we're kind of blown away by some of the results we've seen, particularly on patient compliance. So 91% of patients were fully compliant to the recommended use of our system, which we think is just incredible. But the value of visual imaging was really borne out in these results as well. So clinicians stated that the visual aspect of what we do was valuable in over 90% of flagged reports. You can see here some examples of the images that we collect from an emergency situation, a bloody bandage. So this means the patient needs to go into to get emergency care. This is a very serious situation. More routine care, such as the callus in the middle, or even simple things like coin or dirt on the soles of the feet could lead to ulcers if not caught early. And we can coach a patient remotely about how to prevent that. What's striking about these three examples is that all of these were identified with visual imaging before the temperature side, again, really highlighting the need for the combined approach of thermal and visual. So the market, there's 38 million people with diabetes in the US. We don't target all of them. We focus on a very narrow 2 million patient subsection. These are the patients who have already had a foot ulcer in the past. We help prevent that second ulcer from forming. The reason why we target these is partly because they're the highest risk, but also because they're the most motivated. They never want to have another ulcer again. They don't want to go through that process. As a payer, to pay for this, we target the payers, the health insurers, and the at-risk providers, really leveraging the fact that we can save them about $8,000 net per patient per year on average, and a 3x ROI really within a couple of months. We charge a $200 per member per month fee, which includes the device, the monitoring, any onboarding, any setup, and ongoing tech support. And again, the market, really huge, $4 billion per year in the US. We have an outstanding team at Bluedrop. So the company was founded by myself and Simon Kiersey. We come from a background in medical device product development. We worked previously in Medtronic in research and development there. Chris Sandrusi leads up our US side of the business. He's our Chief Commercial Officer. He's based in Houston in Texas. He comes from a background in wound care again, companies like KCI Acelity and 3M, a lot of experience in digital health, remote patient monitoring there. Our medical director, Dr. Scott, has a 30-year track record as a physician treating wounds and set up some of the first wound care centers in Texas during his career. Our go-to-market strategy, so we are fully FDA compliant, HIPAA compliant as of 2023. We have 2 active commercial pilots, including one in LA with the health system with the highest amputation rate in the country. We have further pilots planned for later in the year, and really starting to sow the seeds for growth into the future. We also have an active clinical trial with Duke, which we commenced in January. So as I said, product development's complete, regulatory complete. We're raising this 20 million Series B to really fund growth and to kind of go after this market. The goal is to grow to 9,000 users and $20 million ARR by the end of 2026, and really build out the commercial, the manufacturing and monitoring operations to get us there. So thanks for listening, really appreciate it. We're really welcome any conversations about what we're doing. Happy to hear from anyone who shares our vision of a world without diabetic amputation. Thank you.